figures up to the number of participants that we interviewed only, or those who involved in our study. And that's it. The rest of it we are not going to count. Should we count, then there is a bit confusion about qualitative research. Okay? So what is qualitative research? It takes an interpretative, naturalistic approach to its subject matter. So it must be very, very natural. What does natural means? You don't have to give survey questions. Okay? You ask people sometimes at the place where they work, or a place that you think that is convenient to you to conduct. Okay? And in terms of subject matter, it's something that is close to them. Okay? So it investigates things in their natural setting. So when you do qualitative research, you don't bring that individual somewhere else to a total new environment. Normally it's where you can conduct, where he or she can reflect, that is the best. But it depends on the situation. Sometimes if you plan to do in-depth interviews, but in factory for example, that noisy environment may not be able to capture 100% of the conversation. So you have to bring him or her, or ask him or her to give you a place, a small office maybe, okay? Because believe me, when you do in-depth interviews, sometimes I would advise you to use Sony recorder, because Sony has a double noise reduction. So in a room like this, believe me, if I'm talking, once you recorded my voice, later you will hear the sound of the aircon much louder than my voice. So it will be kind of annoying for you to listen to an interview with a lot of interruptions. Okay? And then it attempts to make sense of interpret phenomenon in terms of the meaning that people bring to them by those who are being listened. So you want to get the meaning from the respondent, not you trying to capture what is it. Okay? Let the audience or the respondent speaks, and that definition or explanation must come from them. It's not your interpretation of it. You interpret later on, where you have gathered all the findings and you try to make sense. But you have to let the respondent to speak by themselves and understand their views of the world rather than that of the researchers. Because qualitative researchers do believe each one of us has our own spectacles of seeing the world. You are coming from your own family unit. Your parents are different from others. The way that you've been brought up are different from others. You eat differently from others. You go to school different from others. Therefore, your understanding of the world 100% will be different from others. And you have to capture that. Okay? So why do you do qualitative research, and when to do it? Why? Are all of you here planning or thinking of doing qualitative? No? 1, 2? And the rest? No? Not yet, not sure. Mixed method? Yes? So you are from AHIBS?
No.
No. Which faculty are you from?
Education.
Education. Your supervisor?
Yusuf.
I do not.
Dr. Yusuf. Professor Mani Yusuf.
Okay. So why do you do qualitative then? Don't be shy. Why?
In fact, I was into quanti, but when I did my proposal defense.
And you're from AHIBS?
Yes, from AHIBS.
Okay, your supervisor?
Dr. Aslan.
Aslan Masnid, yes.
But because of the limited, very few responded sample, the sample size, so I was asked to.
What is your topic?
I was carrying out on the impact of leadership styles on innovation management.
Okay.
So I was asked to do quality alongside.
Who's the examiner? He or she?
They were two, he and she.
He and she.
Yeah.
Both from business school?
Yeah, both from business.
Okay. So the reason is because small sample size?
Yeah, small sample size.
Okay. Anyone else? Not you?
Actually, I'm doing design science research. Design science research.
Okay, design science research.
So I'm using qualitative as a approach.
Okay.
Ah,
You're from faculty?
SC, Science Computing.
Science computing.
Yes.
So from which perspective of qualitative are you looking into?
On to look, because this phenomenon I don't understand at first, so I need to know if
What is the phenomenon?
I need to apply one framework inside that company.
Okay.
So I
What
need
is
to
that framework?
it's more on computer, CT, computational thinking.
Okay, computational thinking.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to know how these computer people think?
No, I want since CT only focus on education, so I want to know if CT can be applied toward business people.
Okay, computational skill, thinking.
Thinking, yes. Okay.
Good. What else? What were you?
Okay, actually, I want to for fully qualitative methodology.
Yes.
Then when I meet Dr. Yusubun, he asked me to do both, means mixed method. But actually, I don't have any basic about the research, because when I'm a degree, I'm doing my just assignment I'm from IIM in Arabic and literature.
Yes.
Then I'm further my study in masters also in education from curriculum teaching with Prof. Zaitun. Also, I don't have any basic about the research. And when I'm going to my PhD, Dr. Yusuf would ask me to do mixed
What will be
method.
your topic?
My topic is about kepimpinan instructional pengetahuan sekolah tahfiz di Malaysia.
Okay, I have one candidate which I met last time. You know, his name was like is something else, but he asked me to call him Inda. He did something of sekolah tahfiz as well.
Yes.
So I think you have to headbang together.
Indah.
Inda, you know, a guy from Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yes, yes, I
Okay,
know.
so you have to headbang together because you can start talking. Don't be afraid of talking to each other. Definitely, your supervisor will skew each one of you on your own separate direction. But again, when you headbang, meaning that two head is better than one. PhD is a very lonely stage, so there will be a lot of emotional roller coaster. So for that reason, having someone that is close to the topic that you are doing, you should embrace that. So we shall go back to you to discuss about why do we do it. On the first place, the first thing that you can think of, if the topic is absolutely recent, there's not much literature going on. If there is, the number can be countable. It means this is, for example, you talk about big data. In computer, talk about big data now. Big data is something that has been introduced to us. Before this, they used the word cloud. So cloud technology should be under big data as well, where people do not have to keep on thinking of buying extra external drive or to have a proper storage for data capture. So they said that as big as the cloud, we can just upload all the information there, and the system will try to manage it. You can retrieve it anywhere that you like all around the world. So you cannot say, I left my hard disk in the office, or I forgot to bring my laptop. Okay, the easiest way to do big data is through emails, right? You all have to do that. Okay, send yourself an email of your work. Should your laptop or your hard disk get corrupted, you have somewhere there in the cloud that belongs to you. Okay, I advise you to do that because hard disk also get corrupted, laptop easily. Okay, so for that reason, if you were to look at or you want to trace the literature on big data, there would many. Okay, if you want to test any model, test means you want to do quantitative, there wasn't any much that is done. So for that reason, any new topic, why you have to do it qualitatively? You have to explore. So exploring means qualitative venture. Okay, so you cannot start, for example, the topic is so new and suddenly you said you want to ask people questions about it and survey, measure, blah blah blah. Because if you say that and I say what kind of work is that, and you say it's exploring the thoughts of people, their perspectives, etc., that is not right. Any exploratory work must be done qualitatively. Okay, So that is the most common thing. It means the most glaring thing why people start to do qualitative. Another part of it is because you believe there are lots and multiples of meanings and understanding and reasons for that particular phenomenon. For example, if I were to ask people, how do you think life is now? We are approaching 2020 for Malaysian, right? And you know our previous Prime Minister, now the current one, Tun Mahathir Mohamad, proposes that by 2020 there will be a biggest leap of our living, of our society, of our development, of our economy, of our achievement. So if you were to do it quantitatively, what 2020, achievements are, so you have to measure what have we achieved in terms of maybe economy, in terms of work structure, in terms of achievements, businesses, etc., etc. But you said, no, achieving 2020 is beyond measuring. There must be some explanation behind. What is 2020 to people? Now, if you were to ask people like me, I know about 2020. Anyone that is younger than us from this room, they don't have any idea what is 2020. Because when the vision was initially, visualized, then they were not born yet. So talking about 2020 is just talking about aliens. Understood? So you say, I want to capture that. I want to make well and understand well what do we mean by 2020. If we have embraced 2020, what it is, how do we get it? So you want to get all those answers deeply. So that's why you have to do qualitative. Because quantitative is just about measuring thoughts. And you put numbers. For example, how happy are you? Or what is your happiness level now? So 1 to 5. I'm happy at number 1. So I'm super happy at number 5. Or I do not know what's my feeling, number 3. Right? So people tend to put association of numbers to measure. So in qualitative, we are not going to measure. The next question is when to do it. As I told you, if it is a brand new research like your friend, you have to start off with qual. Okay? You have to start off with qual because you do not know what are other research available that investigate similar issues like yours. And the fact that you cannot measure, so you have to start it then. So normally you have options. If you want to do wholly qualitative, yes, I did it for my thesis. You can do it with multiple data collection techniques. Okay? With multiple data collection techniques, and all of the techniques are qualitative, which is good. Okay? Another part of it is that you can combine. So some of your lecturers said, mixed method is easy. You have to justify why do you have to use mixed method. So for combination, you can use qual-quant. So exploring it first, develop the tools, later you test. But again, if the subject or the respondent is not many, so you have to do it qual. So there's no way of doing it qual-quant. Understood? You can also do it quant-qual, meaning that you start off with measuring. Because all the research that you have done before, with some adaptation and twisting, introducing new variables in the research, that you can develop a new plus, an extension questionnaire. Okay, means you use other people's, you combine a bit, you introduce a bit, and then you declare this will be your tools. Okay, then after measuring, then you say, okay, hold on. The research done in the UK and the US says item number 5 or variable number 5 reacts significantly positive. Significantly positive means more than 1. Why do my answers giving me negatively insignificant? So that needs some explanation. So for quant people who think that they are doing only quant, later they realized upon presenting their findings, they have to back up with reasons. Why? Because in chapter 2, which they have underpinned 100% match, cannot support their answers. So they have to do follow-up interviews. Have you heard about that? But that is only to deal about all those significant variants. It means the one that is very glaring, not following the literature. So you may need to do some follow-up interviews with key persons that you think are knowledgeable to answer this. Because some of your answers are not following major of the literature, even though you replicate the questionnaire and you extend a bit. Okay? Understand? There's also another way of doing qual, which is not 100% qual. So you have qual, quan, qual, qual, quan, and then you have also qual, quan, qual. Okay, that would be like a sandwich. I always call it a sandwich because you start with, interviewing the key stakeholders, trying to grasp what is going on, because the survey that you have found that match to your studies are developed in the UK, in the US, but none of them has been tested in the Asian, in particular Malaysia. So for that reason, you go about of asking the instrument with the key stakeholders, those who are in the field, those who are the practitioners. So you do it qualitatively, right? And then you do the big survey, and then addressing, as again, you find some of the information or the findings that's not in parallel, that's not supported by the literature previously in chapter 2. That's why you need to do some follow-up interviews. Okay? So I'm not saying that you can do only qual and quant, you can mix. But by mixing also, you have the options. As I said, qual, quant, qual, 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 quant, qual. Okay? And it's okay if you just want to stick with qual. Okay? Have you ever thought about that? Qual, 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 qual. Okay? You can do that. Okay? That's the options that you have in life. Okay. So now you have to understand research philosophy. Okay. This is the key thing in doing your research. The best part of research philosophy is the simple, layman term is, what do you believe in life? How do you see the world? Okay? Because these research philosophies will bound the whole design of your study. Okay? Because how you see it is how you are going to design your work. Okay? So the first thing is talking about research philosophy deals with the source, nature, and development of knowledge. If you think knowledge is only 1 plus 1 equals to 2, so you have to do it quantitatively. Why? You identify what is the one, you identify another variable one, that is the measurement that you want to look for, 2. But if you think 1 plus 1 equals to 3, 4, 5, so that requires you to look at things qualitatively, because that number 1 is insufficient in terms of arithmetically to explain the 5, right? Or to explain the 3, the 4. Because you think there are elements beside 1 plus 1 to that particular phenomenon. Okay? Another part of it, it is researchers' awareness in formulating beliefs and assumptions in the research. So you are aware of what's going on. It means that you have researched through, you have read the literature. They are only measuring, and measuring. Measuring can only answer 2 questions. What? Only one actually. What? Okay. The how and why, the when is quali. So for that reason, if you think that you are satisfied with the what, then quantitative it is. You can start off with the what in qualitative, but follow-up question will be when, why, how. Okay? It reflects researchers' important assumption which serve as a basis for the research strategy. Because that already will say, okay, I think I'm comfortable to do qualitative because I think there is more than one or a few variables. Are you familiar with the word deductive and inductive, right? So for quant, there are a lot of elements or factors, they only select 5. So that is deductive. They do not want to measure the rest of the thing in life, but only these 5. And why these 5? They said so and so, so and so, so and so said these are important. That is being inductive. But qualitative, being inductive, that is deductive. Inductively, we allow whatever it is, but then now we picked up from the respondent what are being said and uttered from the respondent. So we allow the term emerge by itself. The terms will emerge by itself. So being inductive means we are not limiting. We are allowing things to emerge. Okay? So of course we are in an opposite extreme from quant and qual, but actually we are complementing each other. If you look at research as a whole cycle, it will start off being inductive, then you come up with all the points that you think which are important among the respondents that you have talked to, and then the quant people will test those emergence issues that you have brought forward as a deductive approach. So we have to live together. We cannot be separated, because then you can say research is in a continuum. It means it's a continuous cycle. Okay? So once you know your main research philosophies, these are the main 4 research philosophies: pragmatism, positivism, realism, interpretism, and interpretivism. So I think looking at this chart, you can definitely say, so qual will be here. Among others, there will be some mixed. So if you are considering to do mixed method, you have to put your philosophy in the right quadrant. Okay? If it's not, then your examiner, among the examiner, if you are lucky, will ask you about what will be your research philosophies in your study. Say, I want to measure this and this, but you never think about the philosophies. Remember, philosophies will be the design, the strategy, the thinking of how you see the world, how you see your problem or your topic. So if you think that you are wholly qualitative, this quadrant. But if you think that you are, 100% objectivist, it will be positivist. Okay? But if you think that there are some mixed methodologies, you have to know which quadrant that you belong to. And make sure that your design, in your case, there will be some experimental work with it, so you have to know which quadrant. And if you were to ask me, Dr. Norhalimah, how long must this explanation be? It must be included in your chapter 3, introduction, the next paragraph, 1 para. And how long is 1 para? 2 or 3 sentences will do. Just to say that, okay, I know which will be my philosophies. The simplest analogy will be, you are a good swimmer, okay? And when people want to ask you which competition are you going to attend, you say you want to attend the triathlon, for example. And which in particular country, I want to go to the Europe. And you see Google here and there will be the famous, the English Strait. Okay, English Strait, it means from England to France, you have to swim over there. So make sure that you are there. Imagine if you don't know the philosophy, you don't know where to go, suddenly you say you want to go to Europe, but the one that you are going is at Pasir Gudang. That is not Europe. So that is already mismatched the whole strategy of your research. Okay, your philosophy will be directing how you want to go, where you are going to do your research, and how about of collecting the data. So if you look under here, research paradigm is a set of common beliefs and agreement shared between scientists about how problems should be understood and addressed. In your case, it will be done qualitatively. So there's no measuring involved. But for you, sir, there will be some mixed methodology here. Okay? Then you already focus. And then according to Buba, research paradigms can be characterized through their ontology. Means which one are you going to decide? There are 4 quadrants. Now start thinking. What is reality? For you, reality needs to be explained. And it differs from one person to another person. And there should not be any way of trying to, deduct their understanding into several elements. It depends. So for that, it will be qualitative, interpretative quadrant. But if you say, what is reality? Well, 1 + 1 = 2. So you are being very positivist. Okay? Epistemology, how do you know something? How do you know that things are correct? And for quantitative person, they say, I will measure it. Measuring will give me some indication, an absolute objective indication or measurement about this particular phenomenon. But for some other people, well, I will interpret the meaning making of all those respondents later on to have some sense about what they are trying to say. So that will be qualitative. Methodology, how do you go about finding it out? So if you are going interpretivist, so you have to do it qualitatively by interviewing, doing focus group discussion, for example, you know. But for survey, you have to do survey because you want to measure. Of course, you can say, doctor, if we want to measure people, you know, in order to make clothes, we can measure them physically. Yes, that is another kind of measurement. Okay. So ontology, what is the reality? Epistemology, how can I know the reality of knowledge? Theoretical perspective, what are the approaches to be used to obtain such knowledge? Methodology, and then methods, and then sources. So you should not get yourself confused. Okay? Some students just use the word interchangeably in the thesis. That creates some room for the external to criticize you. Okay? So you have to know ontology, what is reality, or ontology only talk about your philosophy. Okay? Epistemology, how do you know the reality? I have to talk to other people. Okay? If some people say, oh no, from the survey, you know, out of all the survey, then we can get the most favorite questions of all, right? And then theoretical perspective, so how do you define knowledge or how do you solve the problem? So you want to look at it from the views of blah, blah, blah. Methodology is talking about the procedures to be used. Methods, how can you collect the data? Okay, and then the sources, what should you get? So this will be the data collection with respect to pragmatism, positivism, realism, interpretism. Okay, I want to give you some time for you to consider, and I'm going to ask you which of these 4 quadrants that you belong to and whether it fits or not in your research philosophy or your research thinking. Okay? Each one of you. And if you don't understand, you say, I think I'm a realism, and then let us look at the explanation and then whether it fits into your needs.